So, yes, there may be a large team, but that team, as you're implying, should be everyone. We can tell you stories over the last 20 years that say, no, it's not. So, moving forward, I would appreciate that sentiment really gets hammered home to schools. Because they're the front line, and a lot of them still do whatever they feel like. And a lot of that affects the children and parents.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Just before we go, we've got a list of about 5 people with questions. We try to move through quickly, but because we have this opportunity, it is very important. I've got 2 quick ones. Before the world changed in June, our meetings were live streamed. We'll talk more about that in a minute. I'm hoping did you have any plans to terminate live streaming before the provision took place, or was it we did live stream just ordinary distance streaming?
Through you, Chair, the practice around live streaming and the pause of live streaming, the board has followed the direction of the streaming.
And the other thing is, Steve mentioned about the experiences of people with parents of students with disabilities and special education needs. Not all, but the number of very serious concerns. We're going to have a couple delegating in just a few minutes after my chair's report. But one issue that we raised a year ago, next month, we held a very successful town hall for parents to come and raise concerns and offer solutions. All in an understanding of kids' days, teachers' days, schools' days. So we got useful information without putting anybody on the defensive, and with them respecting everybody's rights, students and staff. We'd like to do it again. Up until now, the staff has said, no, they're too busy with the special education review. I think we can do it. We should be open to it.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I will take that request back and consider that for this.
Okay, because I asked Associate Director Swiss to take that last week, because she hasn't heard about it. I really think that we can do it, and it's not a major demand of a staff time thing. We can pull this. We know what to do because of all the front end work we did last year, and we can come up with a way out of SEAC to do it and do it efficiently. But I think it is more important than ever that parents of children with disabilities, special education needs be able to come forward to the board and express their concerns and get their attention, especially because other avenues of doing so used to exist for reasons apart from anything that you or me or your staff would do. With that, Nora, you have a question? And that's the questioners to be briefer than Steve and me, and I apologize.
Thank you for coming. I guess I need to dovetail on Steve's. So Steve was telling me the difference between the staff here who watched work diligently hard, and I was going to recall the staff here who haven't had answers. But we do know schools are not filling it, and it's about transparency, which dovetails with what David was talking about live streaming spend. Special education is a convoluted thing. It is not a natural structure. Most parents have no idea what the language is being discussed. So being transparent, our committee being accessible to the public changes lives. There are people on this committee who are on this committee because they started with watching an audience and then decided that they were going to learn to advocate for their own child and now want to have other people talk to. That's the power of live streaming. I also have no faith that whoever made the decision not to live stream understands what the combination means. So not providing this to people's homes means you don't understand what it's like to get here with trans. You don't understand what it's like to get here in vehicles, in rush hour, with times, feed your families, come and represent them. The people here, I can't imagine what their evening looked like trying to arrive tonight. So making them come, having no audience here for them to present to, means we don't care if the public, not you, I understand, don't care that the public is well informed about what's happening. So I don't believe whoever made this decision understands the duty to accommodate needs. So I'm not sure how I'm supposed to trust the decisions following that. So canceling student interest programs, all of our students with special education needs benefited from that honoring system. They had invisible barriers prior to the change in that policy that our trustees listened to the public and made those changes. So I think I'm going to need assurances that you will take back to whoever has made this decision that they have absolutely zero education about disability. So now trusting them to make policy changes, unearth the Education Act, overturn decisions that are written in laws, I have very little confidence that they actually understand the lived experience of the people who have come to me. So I'm asking you if you could please take that information back. I don't have a lot of faith, given this is how we're starting the nation's strategy.
Latoya, thank you, Laura.
Thank you, and we appreciate that. I'll actually start with my last comment and just piggybacking just off what Nora was saying, about the advocacy, that understanding of the value of SEAC being something that is available and accessible for families, as parents, I know many parents as well, with kids, for example, who may have autism or very high intense needs around certain hours, to be able to make it available online, it's a tremendous amount of support for those parents, for them to not only find the language to be able to advocate and be understood and find acceptance, but the validation, the support that goes a long way to help families build capacity. And then going back, my question was more on also about the communication strategies that are being done for children with special needs. Some students, for example, are autistic. You can speak to that mainly from personal experience, but they're also verbal. Is the focus of the communication strategy on non-verbal special needs students, and if it is not, and if it will also include a broader experience, what does that look like, and also what efforts are being done for ensuring that there is a realized benefit for in the classroom, realized benefit for teachers to be able to use these strategies. Also, there seems to be, for some students with communication barriers, whether they're nonverbal or not, where they feel like there's a trade-off between being identified as disabled and accepting labels of incompetence. And while I can appreciate that TDSB is not in the policy of writing these things and say that it's what should be done, there's still that undertone and that undercurrent that still comes up. And my question here is what's being done to help to address these challenges in TDSB and supporting those students with communication barriers.
Thanks, Latoya. By the way, I just seriously be a first name person, if that's okay. Please just call me David.
All right, David. Great. Thanks for that. I think what you're speaking of, Latoya, is our fundamental belief that every child can learn and that every child deserves every opportunity to access learning and to demonstrate learning, regardless of the barriers. And sometimes those barriers are communication related. Sometimes it's a matter of the child needing or the student needing particular support in order to understand information that is being communicated. Sometimes it's about expressive language and the opportunity for the child to express what they know and understand in ways that the educator and those around them can understand and can know what they know. and to recognize that when a child or when a student has communication difficulties, that is not because they lack intelligence. It's not because they lack ability. It's a communication issue. And that we need to solve that communication issue, be it with technology, be it with therapy, be it with instruction strategies that are going to be supportive. And I think for me, it begins with really knowing and understanding that student, each student. And to know that student, we need to know what the assessments have to say about that student. We need to know what the parents have to say about that student. We need our own observations of that student in the classroom. We need to see the evidence of what they're able to produce to form altogether a good understanding of who that child is and what they're capable of, and teach them as though they are capable. But you also made reference to my comments earlier about the session's focus on communication. We know that, and to go back to an earlier question, that educators, even the most well-meaning, may lack knowledge, may lack skill. And so it's important for us to look at every opportunity to make sure all educators, that we reinforce with them that fundamental belief in our students and their abilities, but that we also build their capacity to know, understand, and be able to change practice that can lead to different outcomes. And it is not one full swoop and it's done. It's an ongoing process with ongoing learning, many workshops, books, conferences, the opportunity to work alongside other educators and co-plan and co-teach, the opportunity to benefit from the assessments done by our speech language pathologists and by our psychologists, and all of those different strategies help to deepen our understanding of our students and what they're capable of, and help to sharpen our practices of what we can do to teach them well, teach them best, and get the most out of them as we work with them to meet their potential. Mandy, do you have anything to add?
Yes, thank you. This year we've been really intentional, and this is based on feedback from SEAC actually, and from families themselves, about whatever we're offering to families. So this particular session on communication skills for students, we're offering an educator-directed session similar to that. Last year, we offered a session on ADHD for families. The feedback was, can you do one for adolescents or secondary? And we're simultaneously doing for educators as well, because what we want is for the strategies that educators are using in the classroom to be used at home as well, to reinforce. So it's very targeted, very intentional supports for educators as well as families. That's not to say those are the only sessions we're offering for educators. Thank you.
Okay, Isabel.
Thank you very much, and for you, Chair. I have a question with regards to something that was brought up towards the end of last school year, and that was also that our deputation of parents came, and that was of the school board without consulting SEAC has gotten rid of the designation of multiple exceptionalities, and there are students with multiple exceptionalities who are not identified as such and in schools right now, and because the classroom, the number of pupils that are, according to the Education Act, are designated for multiple exceptionalities as opposed to developmental disabilities, is actually creating a bit of a problem in that the classroom staff expanded, and this is actually posing a bit of a risk. This issue was supposed to be addressed. We were supposed to, I guess, resume discussing this, and I would like to ask the Director of Education if perhaps you could comment on what might be the next step forward, because we have hundreds of students that I can that I could actually know because of their families in especially our congregated sites who have multiple exceptionalities and developmental disabilities, but one of them. And this needs to be rectified because we're dealing with safety issues at this point. So if you could please let me know, the families and SEAC know how this can be remedied.
Thank you, Isabella. I'm going to ask Mandy to respond.
Thank you. So I think, Isabella, we need some dedicated time to talk about that because there are some different interpretations. We do follow the Ministry of Education's categories of exceptionalities and in identifying specific students with an exceptionality or multiple exceptionalities listed based on their primary exceptionality and so forth. There's also a second part, however, which is around placement, and placement options are left to the discretion of every school district. So some districts, for example, do not have an autism ISP, or they don't have a developmental disability ISP. They may have a communications class, or they may have a life skills class, where different students, depending on their needs and their strengths, would be in. So it's a bigger conversation that I don't think we can answer right now, but certainly deferring to the chair to have as an agenda item at a future meeting. Thank you.
Happy to do that. Leo, and then Ron, and then wrap up, because this is just the first of a series of important issues. Go ahead.
Thanks, David. I'll be brief. Speaking for Autism Ontario. Thank you for coming, first of all. Let's talk about spreading resources thin for some of our learners with the greatest needs. Class camps were raised for special education classrooms, like, for example, MID classrooms and diagnostic kindergarten a few weeks ago. Despite concerns raised by Autism Ontario and many fellow SEAC Association members. What will the board do to ensure that the students are still receiving the level of care and service which they require despite the increase in tax? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. The class sizes of TDSB special education classes and the two particular classes that are in the classroom were aligned to the Ministry of Education class camps. The expectations for services students remains the same in terms of the staffing levels. There remains a teacher in every classroom. There remains at least one education assistant in each program in our ISPs, and some of our ISPs have more special education assistants or other staff that are access to support based on the alignment of TDSB's class sizes is to Ministry of Education class size camps.
Just following up on that before we get to one, when this came up in the spring, and you know it's been a subject of a great deal of angst at this table and advocacy at the trustees table. The point I made to staff then, when I made publicly since, I want to raise it with you. When people hear about the raising of caps, first, the fact that it aligns with some industry guideline doesn't help. If it's more kids than were in the class last year, it's a worry to a parent. And second, as I understand it, diagnostic kindergarten isn't even a provincial that means that there are dozens and dozens of classes which are going to have more kids than were before. Then that's going to be a big word. If it's a small number of classes, and if the staffing profile needs maybe a less teacher, or maybe a couple more students, but there's more allied educational staff, and things working for me, I think the reaction is very different. So the point I've made over and over is we need to sort of see what the bottom line is. I understand that couldn't be predicted in May, but it's now October. And whether this is a tempest in a relatively small teapot, or this is a much different story in terms of its magnitude, is not something we can tell. So to that end, and there's one help, I heard that a rumor, so I can't even remember who told me, that they heard that some of the diagnostic kindergarten classes were closed. In fact, after the school year began, students were shifted to another school, which if that happened, would be quite disruptive, especially if it's after a year. I don't know if it happened. So I followed the protocol we followed here for the 10 years of union, which means I wrote an ask. And I couldn't get an answer. It was told it's operational. It was summarized. It was told it's operational. Director, everything we discuss here is operational. Everything we've asked you so far. Everything in the leadership is operational. I was stunned when I saw it. And I would think with engender more confidence in the board, if there was the past willingness to share this kind of information that we are accustomed to and appreciate. You know, so we could bring a freedom of information request. I don't think you want us wasting the $5 and having your staff run around with all the bureaucracy and then send a report saying, and by the way, here's how much it will cost for the solution. I've been through that with the province, I know what it's like. Nobody wants it. And it undermines what we're doing here. So would it be possible, I suspect you would say, can I take it back? And I say, great, please. But would it be possible to try to provide some kind of picture of how this change is actually in increasing those tabs in the mild intellectual disability and diagnostic kindergarten classes? How it's actually played out? How many classes it affects, how many kids it affects? Maybe that when you come back with that information, the bottom line is, you know what? It wasn't such a big deal. The reallocation of the staff is actually more productive. That's what it was then. Or it could be something different. We can't know. Can you help us?
Thank you, Chair. You predicted correctly that on the specifics, I will need to take that back and have some further conversations and see what the move forward might look like. More generally, I will comment that in any given year, frankly, in any school board, there are projections in the spring, including in special education, and classes that are organized in a particular way for the number of students that we think we might have, for the particular needs and how those students have to balance that, of course, with making sure that we can accommodate as many students as possible and provide the best situation for supporting them as possible. So it is a balancing act, but a normal part of the staffing process that we go through. But always through that, we're thinking about the students and how best to support them.
Can I do a small follow-up?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. I think we're less interested, or I am at least less interested in the daily operation and movements of students because I understand that happens, right? But what I'm trying to assess is really trends, right? And trends as data that stems from decisions that were taken. So staff told us that the reasoning for increasing the caps was to increase access, or you would have more classrooms of that type, right? And so what I'm trying to assess is to understand, okay, the caps have been raised, so why are there rumors that classrooms are being closed, right? And again, we can't know that unless we have the information which staff is refusing to provide. But if we do receive that information, and I know we have an app online, so it's information that we know is publicly available. You can go there and you can see that there are 20 diagnostic kindergarten classrooms open, right? But if you tell me how many there were last year, and the year before that, we can start seeing trends, and then we can start looking and start analyzing that data to see if it indeed the intent of increasing the caps to increase access has become real, or if that was not really what happened, right? So information is important to realize those trends, right? Access is important, but service level as well is important, right? It's my point about spreading resources. So to be able to analyze all that many data, I think that's really what it is. We don't want anything operational, but we want to understand, not the way students are moving around, but trends. Trends are important.
My only variation of that is, if that's, the board staff needs this from operation, they cover a wide range of things. It doesn't really have meaning, but if this is operational, I don't care. We need, if it's told we can't get operational information, that's what we told you about. Rhonda.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for coming today. I'm Rhonda Alsop, representing most parent children. I have three things I'd like to touch on. Firstly, hearing the news of stopping and having the live streaming is appalling. I think it's completely going against everything that we're hearing with the TDSB for inclusion. My son is at work hearing my privilege that I hear, the partner. I'm going to have to call a babysitter tonight to randomly teach them ASL on the spot to be here to show them how to do our jobs, technology, to take out his batteries, to stop him when he doesn't have his technology on the path. It's completely ignoring everything that parents are going through to advocate for their children and the accessibility part for us that we go through our younger children. And we need, and I can't be our member, but there are other parents who are drained and burned out and in tears. And if they can't come here in person to advocate for their child. So I am appalled that this is brought to this as a proposal, or it's going to be happening. This has to stop. So I'm clear still, you said it was through the ministry that directed this to you. This is not okay. And we're going to fight, and it's going to explode because we're not going to stop until this first. Number two, I would like to know why, when I did email the superintendent, or the superintendent, but the supervisor, why still I get this generic response that I don't get any form of follow-up. And then when I go to follow the protocol, I still don't have the superintendent's email accessible on the website. Not one superintendent has their email accessible on the TDSB website. I raised this concern last month at our meeting, but it also has not been accessible on the TDSB website for over a year. How is that following the parent protocol? I have to be honest, the parent bar sees it doesn't work. How are we supposed to be reaching these people in this
you have my written report. I am going to ask, just like what we heard earlier about minutes that you received, including a letter which I circulated today, dated October 5th, which I sent to the board regarding the request of diagnostic kindergarten closures, and whether they're physically attached to the minutes or posted online along with the leadership report. I want them posted for the public to see them. We'll ask for a vote when we're done. I think it's most efficient to make it part of the meetings. With respect to the live streaming, let me speak about this for a minute. And I hope and trust that I'm going to speak from common ground on this. The province's decision to prohibit the school board from allowing us to live stream is arbitrary, it's unfair, it's unjustified, it's inexcusable. It is a slap in the face to all of us who volunteer our time to be here, away from our families. It's a slap in the face to our kids, and to all the kids with disabilities and special education needs who we're here to advocate for. It is also a slap in the face to TDSB staff. We come to this meeting, spend a lot of time preparing, have to deal with our questions and our probing, and provide answers to the best of their ability, and in so doing, try to find common ground, work on collaborating, and at the same time, try to share information like in the director's report and in the leadership report Amy's going to present a little later. It is a slap in the face to them who are putting their time into that work, not just to tell us, but through this meeting to tell a larger audience. Well, that audience just shrunk unfairly, inexcusably, in a way that is as disrespectful for the staff as it is for us. And when the staff have to deal with our questions, try to explain what's going on, deal with frustrating circumstances, these are human beings trying to do their job the best they can. They share our concern about these kids, and even when we disagree, we are not disagreeable. And the video of this going out to the community is a strengthening process for all of us. On top of the parents who may watch it and see, hey, I'm not alone. And I can tell you I hear from lots of parents of kids with disabilities how much they feel that they are alone, that they are isolated. We need to do, as Bronwyn said, whatever we can, and we will, to try to reinitiate that switch that costs nothing and helps many. It is also more important than ever, in the current circumstances, that even without, that we maintain these as hybrid meetings, not online meetings. If we were to go simply to online meetings, there would be nowhere for anyone even to come in and sit in this room, as several have. If we went to online meetings alone, we don't have the chance for the interpersonal, the informal, and even during the formal meeting, the kind of interaction you just don't get when you're at home staring at a computer screen for yet another 2 hours in your day. For those who can't make it, it is an important accommodation and providing a capacity to participate. But for those of us who are able to make it, who need to come in person to be able to fulfill our roles most effectively, and I count myself among that while I serve as your chair, it is vital that these hybrid meetings continue. You've got in the materials in my report my letter summarizing the meeting I had last month with the supervisor. It was an hour, it was positive, it was a good meeting, and it was a substantive meeting. I spent the time pressing upon the supervisor the priorities that we have been trying, at times without success, to get action on at this table. The stuff that we're advocating on, and we get successful, we don't need to take up the supervisor's time. We need to deal with the ones that are outstanding. And that included the need for the board to adopt an effective, comprehensive strategy to educate parents about what's available for their kids and how to access it. And a better process for trying to deal with disagreements on what their child needs or whether it's being delivered. And I intend to pursue that. At the end of the meeting, we agreed that we should meet again in 6 weeks. That means the end of October or early November. And I'm an open guy. When I have the meeting, I will follow up and let you know what happened. The special education review, we're not going to have time to talk about this meeting, but I am going to put it on the agenda as well as the multiple disabilities topic for our next meeting, because I think we need to hear what's going on with that review. It's been 5 months, I think 4 or 5 months since we've heard. We were told it was going to play an important role, and it would be really helpful to know where it landed. And finally, we're going to now proceed, later than I hoped, to, but for good reason, to 2 delegations. And before we get to them, I just want to say to all our friends here, whether in the audience or SEAC members or whoever, we are welcoming people who want to come to make a delegation. If you know anyone and they've got a message that you think would be helpful, please encourage them to write, email Leanne Dixon, and to ask to make a delegation. She'll tell them what steps need to be taken. The priority is this: no names of child, no names of school, no names of teachers. And helpful to tell us about something that's gone wrong, helpful to tell us about something that's gone right. But whatever happens, tell us, give us a concrete recommendation or recommendations on how to improve. It's through that we can learn from them and try to transform that into action. With that, we have 2 delegations, and 2 delegations. Are they online or in person? Oh, you're right here. Okay, Liz, continue. Which of you would like to go first? Or shall we just do it alphabetically and start with Liz? That was a joke. Liz, you want to go first?
Sure.
Would you like to come up here? Is it convenient for you to come up here?
Absolutely. Am I sitting over here?
Liz, is your Tracy, she does not vote.
Okay.
I'm making no choices about me. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Oh, before we start, can I move that my report including the related correspondence today is received and affixed to the minutes? Seconder, all in favor? Opposed, if any, are we through? We're good. All right, take it away.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you to SEAC for giving me the chance to speak today. My name is Liz. I'm the mom of 2 boys, aged 12 and 15. As a very busy single parent, I need to be able to rely on our schools for support. Unfortunately, I can no longer trust them. After more than a decade in the TDSB, I have jokingly called myself a veteran of special education. Not the badge of honor I wanted, but here I am. My introduction to this world was a shock. Back in 2017, at the end of grade 1, after cards with no red flags, report cards with no red flags, I was suddenly told my eldest was severely behind in reading and writing. He was kind, quiet, and didn't cause disruptions, which meant he slipped under the radar. Unfortunately, that was my first glimpse of a bigger systemic issue. When the schools are stretched thin, the kids who don't demand attention often don't get support. At grade 3, I realized if I waited for TDSB psych ed testing, my child could be waiting years. So I paid privately. Unfortunately, in the TDSB, good behavior is rewarded with the privilege of being invisible. With my younger son, I was determined to be proactive. He had a severe speech delay, began speech therapy at the age of 2, and I was already meeting with school admin the year before kindergarten to prepare. Later, another private psychoeducational assessment confirmed his learning disability. I wasn't passive, and with the help of an experienced MART at our school, strong teachers, and outside tutors, both of my boys made steady progress. That all changed in 2023 with a new administration at our school. Our once stable school became chaotic. Teachers went on repeated leaves, violence became common, victim blaming crept in, and worst of all, special education completely fell apart. My younger son actually lost both his MART and his teacher to leaves of absence in 2024. At his IEP meeting that spring, last spring, I confirmed with the vice principal that he was entitled to 40 minutes of daily withdrawal support. She admitted that he was not receiving it. Instead of fixing the problem, she told me his IEP would be retroactively changed to 40 minutes per cycle. That's not just inadequate, it's unlawful. When I asked who I should escalate this to, the answer I got was, I guess, the trustee. So I emailed everyone, school admin, the superintendent, the executive superintendent, the trustee, and 13 other TDSB executives. For more than 24 hours, I received silence. Only after I sent a follow-up email expressing my disappointment did the VP finally reply. Not the principal, not anyone from the board, the VP only. I'd like to be clear, I'm not saying that my son was receiving slightly less than his allotted time in his IEP for withdrawal support. He was getting little to none. There were weeks at a time where he had no withdrawal support. Once in a while, he'd be placed in a reading group, which is not what he actually needed. And here's what stings the most. While my son's IEP was ignored, his certs, because we have two at our school, were diverted to cover classes, attend field trips, including 3 days to attend the grade 8 graduation trip, and manage individual behavioral students, and even run the school musical. Look, I love a good play, but not when my child's education is sacrificed for costume fittings. When I finally met with the superintendent, the VP, and the principal, supported by an educational advocate that I brought with me, I was met with excuses. At one point, I actually had to say, please do not gaslight me. The superintendent's role seemed less about helping students and more about shielding an inexperienced, uncaring principal who for some reason seemed to have a particular disdain for special needs students. And just when I thought things couldn't get more unstable, this year the principal decided to completely overhaul special education yet again. My son has now been placed in an experimental grade 6, grade 7 split class without parents ever being told why or what the benefits are. Meanwhile, our highly experienced MART was replaced with inexperienced special education teachers. And I know my story is not unique. One mother I supported from our school, who came to Canada as a refugee, was pressured to move her autistic daughter to another school for her final grade 8 year. This is after a year of her receiving almost no spec ed support. This even included the principal booking an appointment with the other school without the mother's consent, and then driving her and her daughter there in his private vehicle. All her daughter wanted was to graduate with her friends. Another parent at our school had warned the superintendent earlier in the year that his daughter's grade 7 class was not receiving math instruction and that special education was not being taught properly at our school. His reward was a cease and desist letter sent by email and hand-delivered to his home. He later spoke about this experience during a radio interview and even met with the Minister of Education. These aren't isolated frustrations. They reveal systemic issues within the TDSB. IEPs, which are legal entitlements, are not being followed. Special education staff are routinely pulled away from their purpose. Principals avoid accountability, and superintendents shield administrators instead of supporting students and parents. Parents are shut out of decisions that profoundly affect their children's education. So what can be done? A few things. Number one, IEP accountability. There must be oversight and consequences when schools fail to implement them. I propose a mandatory implementation law requiring SEAC teachers to document accommodations weekly with regular unannounced external audits. Number two, protect CERT and marked time. Their role is special education. It is not musicals. It's not supply coverage. It's definitely not field trips. Their time must be safeguarded. Number three, staff with intent. Stop placing inexperienced principals in high-need schools. Hire superintendents who prioritize students, not protecting administrators. Number four, parent partnership. Parents should be treated as allies, not adversaries. Principals who ignore parent emails should be held accountable. Number five, communication and transparency. Enforce a proactive communication protocol when services are disrupted, and provide master schedules and individualized logs to parents upon request for their special needs children. I could go on forever. I only have 5 minutes. I'm sure I've gone way over that. I have provided a PDF with more than 20 detailed ideas for improving special education worldwide. I truly hope that SEAC will share it with everyone. To close, I'll say this. Special education is not an experiment. It's not a luxury. It's a right. And when the TDSB gets it right, it doesn't just benefit children with IEPs. It strengthens the entire school community. Thank you for your time and your commitment to improving special education across the board.
Thank you very much. You said you got a PDF and I've seen it. I'm wondering if we might have a vote to receive it so it becomes part of our proceedings. It can be put up online on our website. Jessica? Rhonda? Rhonda? Okay, all in favor? Right, thank you very much, and please feel free to stay and after we're done, just meet with the members of the staff. I'm sure people would like to talk to you. All right, thank you very much. Danny? Nice to meet you. This is Tracy.
Nice to meet you.
Have a seat.
Thank you. Yeah, as I'm settling in, I just also want to mention I was part of that parent call last November, and it was outstanding. So, Director of Education begging me to really push hard for it because it was amazing to be in the community and to know what the others are going through. So, thank you for doing it last year. Okay. Good evening, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm the parent of a child who is autistic with ADHD. His journey through school has been incredibly rocky and has seriously impacted his well-being, our family life, and his education. We are in an ISP now, which has been a big help, but getting here has come at a huge cost to us, and we're still not where we want to be. We have faced many barriers, but tonight I just want to focus on one core issue that I think drives most of the challenges that we have had, and that is a profound lack of knowledge and training about inclusion and neurodiversity among teachers and administrators. My son was diagnosed after SK and is now in grade 4. I've spent most of that time educating our educators about autism and frankly battling their ignorance on the subject. However well-intentioned, staff who manage disabled children without the right knowledge or experience often do more harm than good. Additionally, the training that the TDSB does provide still leans on outdated approaches that have been known to be harmful to some autistic individuals. The impact is huge. Not only are parents left to fill in the gaps, but schools are often actively setting us back. Here's our story. In SK, my son was struggling socially. Instead of leading us to resources for support and diagnosis, my son's teacher told me to give him caffeine and a gluten-free diet. She said his refusal to attend school was because home was too much fun and told me to reduce his screen time. I spent months reaching out to administrators for help, but got no response. In grade 1, with a private diagnosis and an amazing teacher, he thrived. Friends, recess, and academic success. But because he did well, some supports were removed, setting him back. That year, I asked about an ISP referral, but the principal refused, telling me, "You don't want that. You want mainstream with support." This philosophy is deeply flawed. The reality is that mainstream teachers don't always have access to the right supports. Moreover, they aren't required to have any special education training, and your child can be paired with someone who isn't equipped. That's what happened to us in grade 2, and it shattered my son. First, there was no handoff from his grade 1 teacher, so all of the supports we worked so hard to put in place disappeared. No priority seating, no breaks, no sensory passes, nothing. Within a week, I was being called for early pickups and even asked to bring Lego sets to keep him with us. The principal refused to change his class, even while admitting it wasn't a good fit. The behavior management practices he encountered were horrendous. My 7-year-old was left alone in a dark room watching YouTube on a Chromebook for 6 hours a day for weeks at a time. I would get robocalls saying he was absent because no one bothered to see where he was. And I won't go into the content that he was exposed to, but it was bad. He came home with bruises in the shape of an adult hand, and no one could or would tell me what happened. He was subjected to physical holds without my knowledge or consent. The sensory room was used punitively and not proactively. He was isolated there after he was dysregulated rather than being given proactive access to support his regulation throughout the day. Staff was using mode strategies that they learned on YouTube and TikTok to manage him. An administrator once gave my son sugar to make him hyper-focus before an activity. These weren't small mistakes. They scared him, stigmatized him, and isolated him. He started to hate himself. He said he wanted autism removal surgery. I was impacted too. I lost my job from the constant demands for early pickups, and I have spent thousands in therapies trying to address the trauma from that year. Despite his placement in an ISP for grade 3, my son was terrified and refused to participate in school most of the year. Grade 4 is going well so far. However, that grade 2 teacher that he had, she has been named the vice principal of his school this year. So we will see. Our children deserve a supportive, respectful education with adults that know what they're doing. Instead, too often, they're babysat with technology and provided with not enough or the wrong supports. Parents are constantly told the system just doesn't have enough resources. But parents like me aren't asking for more resources. We're asking for different ones, better ones. So what do I suggest? First, a shift in mindset. Schools need to focus on supports that proactively help sensitive nervous systems stay regulated and not just react when things fall apart. Second, I think all mainstream teachers should have mandatory up-to-date training on autism, ADHD, and neurodiversity. And the TDSB should adopt a more neuro-affirming curriculum like Powerful You and others. If mainstream with support is the ideal, then at minimum, mainstream teachers should be provided with the knowledge base they need to support kids with various needs. And third, proper transition planning between grades. Every year, every child. There's a section at the end of the IEP for transitions. They should use it. Imagine how much smoother classrooms would run if teachers knew how to keep kids regulated. Fewer disruptions, fewer calls home, and more learning for everyone. Parents like me fight year over year for the supports our kids need. Like every parent, we want happy, thriving children. And we need schools to help us, not set us back. Maybe I was naive to expect schools to be the expert here, but with better knowledge and training, we can at least be closer to that goal. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. And you also have a written statement. We open to our receiving it as a written document to be part of our meeting proceedings.
Yes,
Okay, motion?
this month because I wasn't sure what to expect.
And
So,
somebody stole some of your thunder.
yes, that's
All right.
Speaking of play,
Yeah. I say director's privilege. Before we do that, though, I just want to make one comment about what Liz and Jenny had to say. In fairness to everybody, we've heard heartfelt, serious concerns. Both individuals understand that we're not here to investigate, comment on, we're here to learn from. As for TDSB, it is not able to, allowed to, or in this case would be appropriate to respond, and therefore it's a series of description of events, but in fairness, I would understand it, the TDSB is not in a position to answer or respond. What would be great is, after we're done, if any staff can have a conversation with both Liz and Jenny and see if there's any follow-up that would be valuable or learning from each other that would be valuable. And the comment I made at the end of the town hall a year ago is one that applies here. We don't sit in judgment and say, I believe her, I don't believe her. What we do is we listen to a sincere statement, and at least I, for myself, I apply a very simple comment. Let's say half of that is inaccurate. I'm not saying any of it is. I'm not saying a word. But even if just half of it is we need to do better. And that's what drives all of us. So it's important, and I emphasize, I'm not editorializing, I'm certainly not dismissing the word of it. But I'm saying what we need to learn from are the recommendations and the heartfelt experiences of parents that drive them to form those recommendations from which we can learn. Nancy, over to you, in whichever order you'd like to do things.
okay, thanks. I'll start with the leadership report. Good evening, everyone. As shared by the director, the ministry has asked for school districts to communicate with families, community-based supports for students with special education needs. We have also asked that this be put in addition to the leadership report in TDSB Connects, which goes to all families so they have access. And we have also put this information in the parent newsletter that goes out from the department. We've already talked about the parent engagement sessions. They're all posted on the external website as well for the entire school year, so 25-26 into spring of next year, so that families can plan ahead. And there are quite a few sessions there from occupational therapy, physiotherapy, autism services, all of the various teams within the department. This month is marked for a number of events. October is Learning Disabilities Awareness Month, as well as ADHD Awareness Month. And we are once again circulating the ADHD fact sheet that was created by the ad hoc SEAC and staff ADHD working group a couple of years ago. And October is also National Occupational Therapy Month. So I kept this one really short here because I want to focus on the action plan that was developed. However, Bronwyn, I would like to say thank you for your suggestion. The directory is linked for all senior team members, so every superintendent. However, and that's live, I just checked. And we actually took your suggestion a step further. So if you were to Google any TDSB school, at the bottom there it says the name of the principal, the name of the superintendent. Not only did we link the name of the email address of the superintendent, we also linked the email address of the school principal. So that's done for all 579 schools across the TDSB. So thank you very much for the suggestion, and we were able to action that pretty quickly on all 579 websites. Check it again, please. I just checked, and if you're not able to find it, we need to problem solve that. But on my computer, it came up.
that's what I was just checking.
I would like to visit, I know So I'm joined online by Assistant Superintendent Debbie Notsky, who will be going through the action plan with me this evening. So yeah, we're ready to go. Thank you very much.
Does everybody know what this is? Or can I take 1 minute to explain?
We're going to contextualize it.
Oh, good, all right, take it away.
As part of this. Thank you. So as we know in the TDSB and in school districts across Ontario, the work that we do is grounded in our multi-year strategic plan priorities, which are based on industry directives. And in TDSB, we are very much committed to identifying, removing, and preventing barriers that create disproportionate outcomes for students, including students with disabilities and special education needs. We're working to achieve this by holding out high expectations and tailoring supports to individual strengths and needs. And this evening we heard about individual education plans, using culturally relevant and responsive practices that affirm identity, building belonging and connection through strong relationships and choice for students, designing inclusive environments where all students can participate meaningfully, and growing a workforce that reflects and understands our diverse student population. We have shared previously with SEAC that this summer was the first time that we were able to have mandatory special education training for all vice principals, all principals, and all superintendents across the TDSB in the area of special education. Ultimately, our focus is on transforming the system so that every learner feels a sense of belonging, every learner achieves, and every learner thrives. So the multi-year strategic plan outlines the conditions we need to have in place for all students, including those with special education needs and disabilities, so that they can truly belong, achieve, and thrive. First, we must partner with parents, caregivers, guardians, and the communities, as families know their children, and their voices are essential in shaping programs and decisions, and we'll see some of that reflected in the action plan. Second, we build a culture of human rights and respect, where diversity is celebrated, dignity is upheld, and every student feels valued and safe. With regards to accessibility and inclusion, these are non-negotiable, and they're the foundation of equitable access to learning and participation for every student. We also need strategic, agile, and equitable leadership, and leaders who can adapt to the changing needs, challenge inequities, and drive systemic change, and this is reflected in the plan. And finally, effective communication is critical. Clear, transparent, and responsive communication builds trust, fosters collaboration, and ensures that families and staff work together toward shared goals. Together, these conditions create the environment in which all students, especially those who have been historically underserved, including students with disabilities and special education needs, can succeed. So why an action plan? So SEAC and TDSB staff have formed an ad hoc working group called the Action Plan Working Group, which consisted of SEAC members and staff, to identify based on feedback from families directly to SEAC or to staff areas of focus that staff need to action. So what is the work that TDSB staff need to do in the areas identified through themes from what we've heard from families? So we know that real change in special education and inclusion happens when we move from ideas to intentional action, and that's why the action plan is so important. It helps to focus our efforts, to set priorities, and ensure accountability. The plan was not created in isolation, as I said, but it's the result of collaboration between SEAC and staff working together to identify what's most needed to support students with disabilities and their families. And the established SEAC Action Plan Working Group brought these perspectives together as well as their suggestions, and that's how the plan was put out. It's grounded in multiple sources of input, as I said, and includes insights from and the voices of parents and community members. All of this ensures that the action plan reflects the lived experiences of those impacted and keeps us accountable to the students and families we serve. I'll pass it over to Debbie for the next slide, please.
Thank you, Mandy. So the action plan is more than a document. It's a roadmap that keeps our work focused, intentional, and accountable, as Mandy spoke to. It provides clarity of objectives. It clearly outlines our goals for supporting students with disabilities, special education needs, and intersecting identity so everyone understands what we are working toward. Again, it also ensures monitoring and evaluation by putting structures in place to track progress and measure impact. We can see what is working, where we need to adjust, and how our actions are making a difference. The plan supports continuous improvement. It encourages us to reflect on our practices, learn from experience, and refine our strategies over time to better meet the needs of students. Finally, it builds accountability. By identifying specific actions and expected outcomes, it makes clear who is responsible and how we will measure success. Together, these elements help us move from intention to impact, ensuring that our work leads to meaningful, lasting change for students and families. The next slide reflects what we heard clearly and consistently from you, our families, community members, and SEAC partners about priorities in special education. First, you told us, and we heard again tonight, that individual education plans or IEPs are a key focus. Families want them to be meaningful, individualized, and responsive. Not just documents, but living plans that guide learning and support. Second, parent engagement emerged as a top priority. Families want more opportunities to be involved as partners in decision making, to understand the processes, and to collaborate on strategies that help their children to succeed. And third, you emphasize the importance of staff training. Educators and staff need ongoing professional learning to understand diverse learning needs, implement inclusive practices, and create environments where all students can thrive. These three themes of IEPs, family engagement, and staff learning form the foundation of our action planning going forward, and they reflect both the challenges we need to address and the opportunities we have to strengthen our support for students. Mandy?
Thank you. So the next few slides, we will talk about these three areas and what the actions will be and how we will monitor and measure for impact based on the actions that we will be implementing. When we talk about individual education plans, we're talking about one of the most important tools we have to support student success, but one that must also evolve to become more collaborative, meaningful, and impactful. So the first action is to amplify parent voice, and we've worked with SEAC on a number of pieces, including the parent consultation letter that we will continue to work on. But what we're looking for is for parents, educators, and where appropriate, students to co-create the IEPs based on student strengths, abilities, needs, and also transition goals. We will monitor this by tracking the percentage of IEP consultations that include documented parent input, surveying families to understand if they feel their voices are being heard and valued. The second action focuses on learning sessions around IEP development, implementation, and transitions. And these sessions will build the capacity of both staff and learning for parents, deepening their understanding of how to design, monitor, and review IEPs that guide individualized programming and support meaningful pathways into secondary, post-secondary, and beyond 21 for students. In terms of measuring success in this area, oops, sorry, I lost my slide here. We'll measure success here through participation rates, pre- and post-learning assessments of staff, and most importantly, student voice, whether they understand their IEP goals are appropriate and see their strengths reflected. We are also implementing a regular IEP audit process, which will help us ensure consistency and quality across the system. And we are building this out currently, but the responsibility will sit with superintendents and principals to do the IEP audits with the support of special education department staff. Ultimately, our goal for the IEP is for the IEPs to be more than just a compliance document, and that is what we're focusing on here. They should be living plans that clearly outline how we will support students' growth, agency, and long-term success. I need to also mention here that the Ministry of Education has some key indicators as well that we need to be looking at. And so we are tracking the number of students with modified mathematics pages in their IEPs, both elementary and secondary, number of students with modified language pages in their IEPs at the modified English stages in their IEPs at the secondary level. So there is quite a bit of data that we will be looking to collect and to see impact or change in practice around those pieces.
Thank you. So another key part of strengthening our IEP practice is ensuring that they are not just procedural documents, but powerful instructional tools that guide daily teaching and learning. The first action is to ensure IEPs are intentionally incorporating universal design for learning, differentiated instruction, and culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy. This means moving beyond listing accommodations to outlining concrete strategies that enhance engagement, support diverse ways of learning, and affirm student identity. The impact we're aiming for is IEPs that truly reflect the individuality of the learner, helping educators design programs that are responsive, engaging, and inclusive. And we'll monitor this by tracking how often IEPs are updated as students' needs evolve, and by examining indicators like attendance, engagement, and achievement data, for including learning skills and work habits for students with IEPs. The second action is, and Nancy has mentioned this, is focused on the IEP audits and monitoring. This is about improving the quality and accuracy of the plans themselves, ensuring assessments are current and relevant, and that modifications in areas like language and math align with our multi-year strategic plan. The intended outcome is twofold: more responsive programming that meets students where they are, and better information to support educators in making instructional decisions. We'll monitor this through compliance checks with ministry and board expectations, looking for clear, accessible language, strong alignment with student strengths and transition goals, and evidence of meaningful parent collaboration. Together, these actions move us toward IEPs that are not static documents, but dynamic student-centered plans that actively drive teaching, learning, and improved outcomes. Andy?
Thank you. So we're moving to parent engagement, and some of the actions listed here, again, based on feedback from the action plan we're grouping parents themselves. So a key pillar of our work is meaningful parenting and caregiver engagement. When families are informed, empowered, and included, student outcomes improve. The first action focuses on parent engagement sessions. These sessions, including upcoming sessions like ADHD Part 2 and FAST-D, are designed to deepen family understanding of specific needs and build stronger collaboration between home and school. These are only two topics, and the reason that these two topics, ADHD and FAST-D, are there is because this committee asked for additional staff training, specifically areas of ADHD and FAST-D. However, other sessions will be offered as well. The goal is not only to provide information, but to help families feel more confident supporting their children and to strengthen relationships that center students' strengths and potential. We will monitor success by gathering feedback from families through surveys on the usefulness, clarity, and inclusion and inclusiveness of these sessions. The second action is about expanding access to information through the special education and inclusion website. By curating peer accessible and current resources, we aim to help families navigate services, programs, and procedures more easily. And so this is the second year in a row that we were receiving ministry funding around transitions, and we've built a very robust transitions website, transitioning to a TDSB school, transitioning from grade to grade, school to school within the TDSB, and transitioning beyond the TDSB. And that is with the support of ministry funding that we've been able to do that brand new as of last year. And we will measure impact by tracking engagement data like page visits, resource downloads, and parent feedback on how helpful and inclusive they found materials. Ultimately, this work is about shifting from informing families to partnering with them, ensuring they're active collaborators in their child's education, and fully supported in navigating the system.
Thanks. Another essential component of our parent engagement strategy is ensuring that information is accessible, meaningful, and responsive to the needs of families. The first action focuses on resource development. Maybe mentioned earlier about our monthly newsletters to the community, parent guides, and other materials in clear and accessible language, ensuring that they are available in multiple languages. This work It is about removing barriers so that all families, regardless of language or background, have the information they need to support their children's learning. The intended impact is greater equity of access, stronger family engagement, and increased capacity for parents to advocate for and support their children. We'll monitor this by tracking resource use, downloads, page visits, and collecting feedback through surveys to understand how useful and inclusive these materials are. The second action is about ongoing consultation. Your engagement means more than sharing information, it means listening. Focus groups, surveys, advisory meetings, and of course SEAC consultations. We will continue to center parent and community voices in our planning and decision making. The goal is to strengthen trust and collaboration between families, communities, and schools, and to ensure we meet both our legislative requirements and our shared commitment to partnership. We'll track this through the number and type of consultations held, who participates in the themes and trends that emerge to inform our future work. Andy?
The last area, the third area of the action plan focus is staff training or professional learning. And building capacity, we've heard, is essential tonight again, is essential to creating a truly inclusive and equitable system. First, we've introduced mandatory training for all principals, vice principals, and superintendents. This will strengthen leadership skills in inclusive, equitable, and legally compliant practices, ensuring every school is equipped to support diverse learners and engage families meaningfully. We'll monitor impact of assessments, completion data, and evidence of inclusive practices in school plans and material design. We're also expanding access to additional qualification courses in special education. We currently have special education AP Part 1, Part 2, and special education autism course. All have been full. We've started this year fully enrolled by TDSB staff. And we're also working on an additional qualification course called Special Education for Administrators, which is school principals, vice principals, superintendents, or aspiring principals and vice principals, that they can take these courses in addition to the mandatory training we've provided. These deepen educators' knowledge and confidence in areas like universal design for learning, differentiated instruction, and IEP implementation. They directly impact programming and classroom practice, which results in changes at the student sets. Together, these actions build a workforce that is prepared, responsive, and committed to meeting the needs of every student.
Thank you. Last slide. We're taking two key actions to strengthen programming and improve outcomes for students with complex learning needs. First, we're developing an alternative teaching and learning guide to ensure learning is individualized, meaningful, and aligned with each student's strengths, needs, and life goals. This approach supports both short and long-term achievement, broadens pathways beyond age 21, and fosters inclusion and belonging. We'll monitor implementation, fidelity, track confidence, and student progress as reflected in IEPs and report cards. And then second, we're establishing special education leadership hubs. In partnership with family and school superintendents, these hubs will build educator capacity, consistency and collaboration in IEP development and inclusive practices. We'll track the improvements through IEP quality, like through the IEP audit, timeliness, personalization, co-development with students where appropriate, and families. Together, these actions strengthen our system's ability to deliver personalized, equitable, and impactful learning for all students. That's the end of our presentation.
Thank you, Debbie. That last one there, in terms of alternative teaching and learning guide, it's specifically for students in developmental disability intensive support programs, because they follow an alternative curriculum. And so we needed learning activities to be meaningful and measurable, and they have an alternative report card as well. So we need to ensure that the teaching that's happening is going to be assessed and reflect each student's strengths and areas of need. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We've got about 15 minutes left, and here's what I propose you do. The last 5 minutes we'll do an association report, a short notion of proposed. But for these 10 minutes, what I was thinking would be worthwhile is to get started on our conversation with staff on this. And it would be great your text, because we'll carry on. Those of us who are on the working group are familiar with this. By the way, I'm hearing what sounds like a party through the walls. And so why weren't we invited? Maybe we'll go after. With respect to it, there are a few of us who are on the working group, and I thought it might be worth for us giving any sort of immediate feedback. I'm going to start with mine.
David, there are some questions.
Oh, sure. Who've got these questions? Okay, so let's wait, Isabel, we're getting, just hang on for 1 second, and then we'll get to you. And then, in that order, and Leo, Nora, is Diane here today? Online, they wish to. And everybody's free to chime in again. Thank you, Louise, for that. Just a couple of quick reflections. First, thank you to staff for their work on this and for deciding they need an action plan, because we did. There's nothing in the action plan that I personally would disagree with, but there are a couple of observations. The first is, much of it sounds like, in varying degrees, what we've heard before, and I had asked Nandy when we had our last working group meeting, Nandy, it might be helpful, either today or at our next meeting, if you could highlight what specifically is new. I think that monitoring the audited IEPs, which is fantastic, is new, unless you tell me otherwise. Or if you're doing more than before, or doing it more intensively than before, that is excellent, and that's new. But a lot of it are important commitments, but all things I can remember John Malloy talking to us about a decade ago. And that's 2 directors ago. We've only had whatever a pandemic in the middle. The other thing, 2 other quick observations, that the reference at the start in Andy's overview, if I remember correctly, was, and I know Louise raised this in advance, on concrete measurable things. And as I listen to this, I'm not sure how we measure. We have lofty goals, and agreeable goals, and unified goals. But in terms of a concrete list of things that are going to happen, there are some, but a lot of it does not have the kind of action plan, measurable, we're going to do this and this. There's a little need for a certain number of training sessions and so on. But as an action plan, I think it would benefit for more of that. And that can evolve. The staff set up 3 priority areas. I just want to be clear with everyone. They were presented to us at the start of the working group. And we worked around them and worked with them. But they don't necessarily correspond to the priority areas of the SEAC platform. So it's important to understand they weren't a collaborative thing. Staff decided on them, and frankly, we weren't. So that is staff coming in with their priorities. We worked within it, and there's some helpful content. There are a substantial number of things we recommend that are not there. I'm not going to list them there. But there are a substantial number in entire areas that aren't there, and that really need to cry out for me. And we've identified them. The last thing is a point of just the one thing that was in there that I would invite you, Nathan, as I stressed, for us to be clear in staff guidance on what specifically is new, because we understood that that's the be. Latoya and Isabel, I have a question.
Sorry, David, it's Louise. If I could ask you a question, I'm going to be very brief. Your characterization of the action plan, our relationship and its development is disappointing. I don't think it's accurate. I will stop there. And again, staff are committed to be working alongside parents, SEAC. We have taken great lengths to be summarizing the voices of parents as well as the suggestions from the working committee. We are committed to the very, very aspirational and detailed actions as well as the monitoring plan. So it saddens me to hear your reaction. I'm looking forward to hearing from other members of SEAC. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you so much, and I just wanted to also commend the staff for taking this action forward. I think it is a very good step forward. I think I've probably commented a lot, just looking at the experience from the financial services industry and comparing that with the, just being able to properly audit IEPs in similar ways, probably using some of the transferable strategies where in the financial services industry they audit what they call KYCs, lawyer client forms to ensure that clients' monies aren't disappearing without cause or they're not being invested in properly. So I really appreciate that that is coming in right now and that there's that accountability piece that's stepping and that's new. The collaboration, just a couple of things really quickly for collaboration with parents and families. I don't really need a feedback, just more of a comment, and then if it fits, you guys can really look into it. Sometimes in the way that communication goes between parents and principals, they're called distancing languages, where it's just, the parents asking this, the parents asking that. So as you guys are doing your audits and check, if there are ways that you can design around capturing those distances. To improve that, as well as the traditional no action type of responses, where parents' emails just go in the inbox, said hi, it feels like. And also just in terms of reviewing, reporting back to SEAC if there's any, I can't remember if you did mention that there is going to be reporting back to some of those findings for what I'm calling an audit, and what that looks like, and how that report back will be, if you're able to give any insights on that. And what considerations are being done to ensure that while we do the audits, so some things we used to do in financial services industry, again, this is education, so it's a little bit different, a lot different actually, is when we're doing those hand-pick audits or just pulling from the files, the actions that's being done to make sure that it doesn't turn into cherry picking almost, and presenting only the positives, and also in those surveys that we do with both the students and the parents, just to how we design. I noticed that some of the surveys in the past, in the design, without you knowing, kids click happy faces, or the ones that are more positive because they don't want their teachers to be sad. So and also the parents, when they do these surveys, they're doing it based on their existing knowledge, not from the knowledge of an occupational therapist, not from the knowledge of a trained ABA therapist, or a trained teacher, trained specialist. So how you capture to ensure that compliance is really being captured, and we're not defaulting to reporting the positives without recognizing that reporting the negative is a hell healthy part of change, so that way we can continue to evolve. The parents, they did their presentation, and so many of the parents came before and did, including myself, that spoke about some of the challenges. So,
I'm gonna ask you if you could just.
sorry, I'm gonna wrap up really quickly. Thanks, sorry.
You can talk, you can more next meeting, no problem.
Yeah, so it's just recognizing that while we have the executive level positive things, efforts that are being done, we still need to pay attention to the fact that there is a disconnect between what the plans are and what the experience is in the class.
A very brief, David, just to thank you very much, LaToya, and our hope is to be presenting regularly to SEAC on the progress of not only our actions but outcomes. So thanks for that feedback.
Staff asked for that, and I said, just let me know when you want to come to us and talk about it, and at least I'm sure I'm totally open to it. Isabel.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. I must say this is probably one of the more exciting plans that I've heard so far since I've been on SEAC. And I just have two comments. The first one, I'm all for differentiating and making sure that the lesson plans also consider universal design for learning and have other accommodations. But being an educator myself and wanting to accommodate all my students, I also realize that to do that, teachers need assistance. Is there also a plan in place to obtain additional funds to help teachers with their lesson plans, because this is going to become quite difficult, maybe even initially, in order to accommodate all the different needs, because that's, it just is, it will require a lot of work. And the other question, actually more of a comment. I'm delighted to hear that there will be more special education also provided to the administrative staff and others. And I imagine also more to teachers as well. I do want to say that I don't think you've ever told us exactly what the special education entails when teachers take it while they're working for TDSB. Are these videos that they're watching, or do they actually have a hands-on experience? I ask this because when it comes to special education, reading a book about it or watching a video is one thing, but being on the ground, shadowing an educator is a whole other thing. And what I would like to say, we have so many amazing special education teachers already. Would it be possible to even consider a mentorship program or even shadowing to provide that additional experience, which wouldn't really cost more, but might make teachers, principals much more at ease to actually be able to, be in an environment with other students and more experienced special education educators. That's it.
All right, thank you.
If I may,
sure.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Thank you very much for your comments, and that was a really interesting idea. I'm going to take that back and talk to Debbie and Andy. I hadn't thought about mentoring, so thank you for that. And really appreciate your reaction. That was more of a reaction we were anticipating for SEAC. I don't think that an action plan has been developed in collaboration with SEAC before with, we think, really, really important themes that we are wanting to go very deeply on and to be talking about the progress. There's been so much done that we've not been able to show you. Your idea about showcasing how the TDSB spec ed quals are different from other university offerings, I think would be a very rich presentation for you to see, and the work of the team's really very extraordinary, and the fact that we're filming all of our classes is says a lot, and we think is going to be making a difference going forward. But until we start pulling the data and asking our educators how it's making a difference and reporting it to SEAC to show the growth, and honestly where we still need work to do, that is the conversation that we're hoping to have in a meaningful way. So hoping that there is indeed time on the agenda to compete. Thank you.
Right, thanks. Nora, you want to use
I'll be super. I wanted to say I was super excited that IEPs being a priority because without them, I'm not sure we'll get to. But I just did want to make a quick reminder again that alternative pages can be on anything's IEP. So just when I heard the report card, I got a little anxious because I understand there's populations all alternative 100% and they need auditing because I think they get frustrated with repeating goals for years. But equally so as a parent of the person who was on full curriculum had alternative pages, you needed those skills. So just a reminder, alternative needs to be monitored for everything that's got alternative pages. Thanks.
Thanks. Get your questions ready for the next meeting. Campbell, we're going to have a fairly long conversation with the president. Motion, if people are open to it. This is not controversial. I'd like to move a motion that states SEAC, the Toronto District School Board Special Education Advisory Committee, urges the Ministry of Education to withdraw its objection to live streaming of SEAC meetings. And if we were to pass that, I'd like the ministry to convey that message. I'd like to propose the committee.
We're at 993 subscribers. We're 7 away from 1,000.
Association reports.
Bruce, we're 7.